An 8-year-old girl with a question so profound it could silence a room? That's exactly what happened on a quiet evening in Shreveport, Louisiana. The scene was set in a small church fellowship hall, a space typically used for Sunday potlucks and Bible studies, but tonight it was transformed into an intimate town hall meeting with none other than Senator Jack Matthews taking center stage. The room was filled with the soft murmurs of folding chairs scraping against the polished floor and neighbors chatting in low voices. Among the crowd of families, retirees, and curious locals, one figure stood out. It wasn't because of her size or stature, but because of the quiet intensity she carried. 8-year-old Emma, dressed in her best Sunday dress, clutched a worn, leather-bound Bible tightly to her chest. This wasn't just any Bible. It was a family treasure passed down from her late grandmother, its pages softened by years of heartfelt devotion. As the evening unfolded, Senator Matthews spoke about his usual topics, policies, achievements, and his vision for America's future. The crowd's reactions were polite but restrained. Among them, Emma waited, her small hands gripping the edges of her Bible so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She had been rehearsing her question for weeks, scribbling it in her notebook during recess and whispering it to herself at night. This wasn't a casual query born of childish curiosity. It was a question that weighed heavily on her young heart. She had always been taught that questions about faith were sacred, and she knew that her question wasn't just for herself, it was for everyone in the room. When the floor opened for questions, a line of adults quickly formed, eager to discuss local concerns and offer compliments. Emma hesitated, shrinking back in her seat as her confidence wavered. But then, her mother leaned over and whispered words of encouragement, giving her the nudge she needed. Summoning every ounce of courage, Emma stood, her legs shaky as she made her way to the microphone. The murmurs in the room softened as people noticed her, the small girl with the oversized Bible. When her turn came, Senator Matthews' expression softened as he looked at her. "And what's your question, young lady?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. Emma swallowed hard, her heart pounding like a drum. With a voice that trembled but held steady, she asked, "Senator Matthews, what does God mean to you?" The room fell silent. It wasn't the kind of silence born of awkwardness, but a deep, reverent stillness. Matthews, a man known for his sharp political acumen and well-prepared speeches, stood motionless. He looked at Emma, then at the Bible she held close, and something in his demeanor changed. His usual political persona seemed to soften, replaced by a rare vulnerability. He looked as though he had been transported back to his own childhood, when such questions felt like profound mysteries. "That's a big question," he finally began, his voice quieter than usual, "and it's not one I've always had the answer to." The crowd leaned in, sensing the gravity of the moment. Matthews continued, "When I was about your age, I had a lot of questions about God, too. My parents took me to church every Sunday. I remember staring at the stained glass windows, wondering if God was listening to me." His words painted a vivid picture, and the audience hung on every syllable. It was rare to hear a politician speak so personally, so openly. "My father used to tell me that faith is like a ladder. You climb it one step at a time, and sometimes you're afraid you'll fall, but you keep climbing because there's something up there worth reaching for." His voice grew steadier as he shared more. "As I got older, life threw challenges my way. I faced losses, failures, and moments where I felt completely alone. In those times, I didn't always feel God's presence. Sometimes I was angry, and other times I thought he had given up on me altogether. But eventually I realized that faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting that there's a purpose, even when you can't see it." Emma's wide eyes glistened with unshed tears, her grip on the Bible loosening slightly. Matthews' gaze returned to her as he said, "God, to me, is that purpose. He's the reminder that even when we stumble, even when we fail, we're not finished. He's the one who tells us to keep climbing, even when it feels like the ladder might break." His words were raw, sincere, and filled with a wisdom that transcended political speech. It was as if the question itself had opened a door to something deeper, something more human. As the words settled over the room, Emma's tears began to fall. Her mother placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, but these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of understanding, of a young heart deeply moved by the sincerity of Matthews's response. The audience remained silent, absorbing the moment, and for a few seconds, it felt as though the weight of the world had paused. The cacophony of politics, media, and social issues had been replaced by something timeless: faith. Matthews stepped away from the podium and asked, "What's your name?" "Emma," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's a beautiful name," he said with a gentle smile. "You know, Emma, sometimes the simplest questions are the hardest to answer, and sometimes they remind us of what really matters." The crowd erupted into soft applause, but Emma seemed unaware. Her tear-filled eyes were fixed on Matthews, her small frame radiating quiet pride. As the applause faded, Matthews turned back to the audience. "This little girl just asked a question most adults are too afraid to ask. What does God mean to us?" It's not an easy question because it makes us look inward. It forces us to confront our fears, our doubts, and our flaws. The room remained still, the weight of his words pressing down on everyone. Matthew's tone shifted again, softer yet firm. "We live in a world where we're always searching for answers outside ourselves. We think success, power, or wealth will fill the void, but they don't. The real answers are the ones that make us uncomfortable, the ones that make us ask, what do I stand for? What do I believe in? Who am I when no one is looking?" Emma's voice broke the silence. "My grandma used to say that faith is like planting seeds. You don't always see them grow right away, but you have to believe they will." Matthew's smile widened. "Your grandma sounds like a wise woman, and she's right. Faith is a seed. It doesn't always sprout the way we expect, but that doesn't mean it's not there, growing in ways we can't see." The room felt transformed. What began as a routine town hall had become a heartfelt reflection on faith, resilience, and the courage to ask life's toughest questions. As Matthews wrapped up, he looked at Emma one last time. "Thank you, Emma, for reminding all of us what really matters. You're braver and wiser than most adults I've met." The applause that followed wasn't just for Matthews. It was for Emma, for her courage, and for the profound impact of her simple, heartfelt question. The night ended, but the moment lingered in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed it. And for Emma, that evening became a memory she would carry with her forever, a reminder that even the smallest voices can ask the biggest questions. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Timeless Storyscape for more inspiring content. See you next time.